They were seductive, dangerous, and impossible to ignore. These women didn't just appear on screen, they set the screen on fire. In a decade ruled by bold fashion, louder voices, and cinematic excess, they became lightning rods for controversy. The 1980s were not kind to characters who broke the mold, especially if they were women. But that didn't stop them. They pushed back, crossed lines, and left critics and audiences both fascinated and furious. Some were censored, others were labeled immoral. All of them became unforgettable. In this video, we're stepping into the shadows of vintage Hollywood to revisit the most controversial female characters of 80s cinema. The femmes fatales, the outsiders, the icons who dared to go too far and paid the price or rewrote the rules. This isn't just about film history, it's about the women who shook the system and forced it to look back.
She wasn't just dangerous, she was inevitable. When Maddie Walker first appears in Body Heat, she brings with her the kind of heat that melts morals and warps judgment. Played by Kathleen Turner in her breakout role, Maddie was the 80s answer to the classic noir femme fatale, only hotter, smarter, and far more unapologetic. In a sleepy Florida town suffocating under a heat wave, Maddie draws in a small-time lawyer like a flame pulls in a moth. What follows is a web of sex, manipulation, and murder executed so smoothly you almost forget who's really in control. Body Heat shocked audiences not just with its eroticism but with Maddie herself. She wasn't a victim, she wasn't looking for redemption. She was calculating, sensual, and terrifyingly effective. The film danced on the edge of censorship, and Maddie became a symbol of female power cloaked in desire. In a decade that often punished women for ambition, Maddie Walker rewrote the rules and got away with it. By day, she's a straight-A high school student. By night, she's a streetwalker on Sunset Boulevard. Angel introduced Susie, played by Donna Wilkes, as a teenage girl living a double life no one saw coming. On paper, the premise was outrageous. In execution, it was even more explosive. The film straddled the line between exploitation and empowerment, and Susie became one of the most polarizing characters of the 1980s. What made her so controversial wasn't just the subject matter, it was the way Angel refused to paint her as a victim. Susie was smart, self-reliant, and fiercely protective of the unconventional family she built on the streets. In a time when teen movies were full of prom queens and mall rats, Susie stood alone, armed, dangerous, and deeply human. The film faced heavy censorship, with some markets refusing to show it at all, but audiences were captivated. Angel sparked sequels, protests, and late-night debates. In a small German town rebuilding after the war, Lola dances, boldly, defiantly, at the local cabaret. She isn't just the star attraction, she's the epicenter of a quiet, seductive revolution. Directed by Rainer Werner Fassbinder, Lola brought to life a character who blurred every line between power and submission, desire and destruction, progress and corruption. Played with striking charisma by Barbara Sukowa, Lola uses her sexuality like a weapon and a shield. She navigates a world run by men, bending it to her will with a smile and a song. At first glance, Lola is simply a provocateur, but beneath the makeup and neon lights is a sharp mind, strategic, fearless, and all too aware of the price she's willing to pay to rise. The film wasn't subtle, and neither was the backlash. Lola was called immoral, dangerous, even anti-feminist. But in hindsight, she was something far rarer, a woman who owned her power, even if it made the world uncomfortable. She didn't just perform for the audience, she dared them to look away. In the world of James Bond, women are often accessories, glamorous, deadly, and disposable. But Domino Patachi was different. Played by Kim Basinger in Never Say Never Again, she wasn't just a Bond girl, she was a mystery wrapped in vulnerability, luxury, and barely veiled danger. Domino enters the story as the mistress of a powerful villain, trapped in a gilded cage of wealth and surveillance. She's beautiful, yes, but it's her quiet tension, her sense of being watched, owned, and eventually weaponized that makes her unforgettable. The film stirred controversy not only for its portrayal of Domino, but for the scenes that walked a fine line between eroticism and coercion. Basinger's performance exposed the darker side of glamour, the cost of being desired, the violence behind the seduction. Critics debated whether she was empowered or exploited, but Domino's presence lingered long after the credits rolled, a reminder that even in a franchise built on fantasy, some characters reveal uncomfortable truths. She wasn't just part of Bond's story, she was a ghost he couldn't shake. She sings in a smoky nightclub under dim blue lights, draped in velvet and mystery. But Dorothy Valens, played with haunting vulnerability by Isabella Rossellini, isn't just a torch singer. She's the aching heart of one of the most disturbing films of the 1980s. In David Lynch's Blue Velvet, Dorothy lives two lives, one on stage and another behind a locked apartment door, where she's trapped in a nightmare of abuse and control. She's not a femme fatale, nor a victim in the traditional sense. She's something more raw, more human, someone broken and trying to survive. Audiences didn't know what to make of her. The film blurred lines between eroticism and violence, between agency and captivity. Rossellini's performance was called brave, shocking, even perverse. But it was honest, and that honesty made people uncomfortable. Dorothy challenged the very idea of what a female character should be. She was sexual, damaged, defiant, and at times, terrifyingly passive. And in doing so, she forced viewers to confront not just the darkness on screen, but the one they brought with them into the theater. She wasn't meant to be understood. She was meant to be felt. She wasn't bad, just drawn that way. And yet, Jessica Rabbit may be one of the most controversial animated characters ever created. In Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Jessica explodes onto the screen in a red dress, hips swaying, voice dripping with seduction. Voiced by Kathleen Turner, she's the ultimate cartoon fantasy, built like a pinup, acting like a noir temptress, and married to a slapstick bunny. But behind the playful tone and groundbreaking animation, Jessica sparked a storm of debate. Parents were outraged. Critics were stunned. Was this really a family film? She challenged every expectation about what an animated woman could be. She wasn't innocent, she wasn't subtle, and she wasn't ashamed of it. Jessica was sexy in a way that felt almost too real for comfort, and that was exactly the point. She embodied the fears and fascinations of a culture that didn't know how to handle female sexuality unless it came with a punchline or a punishment. She wasn't just a singer, she was a symbol of danger, desire, and something deeply 80s. Rebellion wrapped in leather and neon. In Streets of Fire, Ellen Aim, played by Diane Lane, is a singer with a voice that shakes the stage and a presence that holds an entire city hostage. Literally, she's kidnapped by a gang of leather-clad bikers led by Willem Dafoe, and what follows is a rescue story soaked in synth, rain, and raw energy. But Ellen isn't your typical damsel. She's glamorous and tough, fierce and vulnerable, an icon who looks like she walked out of a music video and into a war zone. The film bombed at the box office, but Ellen Aim became an obsession. Her overt sexuality, combined with her total command of the stage, made some critics uncomfortable and fans obsessed. She was untouchable, and yet completely exposed. In an era where female power was still being filtered through male fantasies, Ellen Aim held the mic and refused to be quiet. She wrote murder like poetry and lived like a riddle no one could solve. Catherine Trammell wasn't born in the 80s, but she was the inevitable result of them. In Basic Instinct, Sharon Stone delivered a performance so cold, so controlled, and so provocative that the world stopped and stared. Catherine was a crime novelist, a seductress, and quite possibly a killer. But what made her truly dangerous wasn't just the body count, it was the way she never flinched. The infamous interrogation scene, the uncrossed legs, the icy stare, it became instantly iconic, instantly controversial. Countries banned it, religious groups protested it, feminist critics were torn. Was she empowered or exploited? But Catherine was never trying to be liked. She was intelligent, ruthless, and unafraid of desire. She flipped the script on the male gaze, made detectives look foolish, and used every stereotype of the femme fatale to her advantage. And in doing so, she closed the curtain on the era of the 80s erotic thriller by perfecting it. She didn't just burn down the rules, she smoked a cigarette while watching them turn to ash.